Most entrepreneurs who are new in business, or even business owners who haven't made $1 million or more of annual revenue, are missing the boat on one specific strategy. And this is a strategy that took me over 7 years as an entrepreneur to figure out and crack the code on. So when it comes to the strategy, it's all about how to fund your business effectively, without paying interest, without giving away equity, without bringing on a loan, without having to self-fund. And from my experience in business, and I've been an entrepreneur for the last 10 years, I've had Ecom companies, I've done drop shipping, I built and sold a travel company at the age of 25, and now I do consulting, real estate investing, etc. Through my experience, I've realized that when you have access to more money, the right type of money, your ability to succeed in business dramatically increases. And it took me so long to figure this out. So in this video, I'm gonna go over a few different ways that I learned about the next best funding product. And 7 years later, after I started business, I found the best funding product and cracked the code that helped me get access to funding, which then helped me launch several very successful ecom dropshipping stores and a variety of other things in investing and in business. And now I've been teaching thousands of other people about how to also crack the code on this specific funding product so they can get access to money and scale their business or their investments to the next level. So when I was 21, starting my first real business, it was a hoverboard company. And at that point, I was new to the game. It was my first real business selling a product. And I didn't know about different funding options. The option that I had and that I knew of was just use your own money. So at that time, I had about $5,000 or so to my name. My business partner had another $5,000, so we pooled up our money together and we self-funded the business with just $10,000. At that point, we were importing these hoverboards from China, bringing them to the States, putting our branding on it, making cool videos, selling them on Instagram, on Facebook ads, and through influencer marketing. Fortunately, we were successful in making a profit on most of the sales. However, because we were self-funding it and sending the money to China and waiting weeks for the shipping time to make it back to the States, it was a very slow process. And for this specific product, it was hoverboards, and it became a very hot product, and that was only a hot product for a relatively short period of time. And so we were doing slow orders and slowly building up. And after a year or so, the trend completely crashed. So there was a shorter window of opportunity, and we missed a lot of the opportunity because we didn't have the initial capital to buy inventory and scale the business. And so that was the first big opportunity cost that I saw. And that was millions of dollars of profit that we missed out on just by not having access to money. But the valuable lesson there was I realized that if I had more money, I would have made more money. So going into my second business venture, it was something similar. It was a very hot, trendy product. It was an inflatable lounger that you wave through the wind, wave through the air, tie it up. You see them at music festivals. It's almost like an air hammock, like an air lounge. And we knew we needed money to scale. This was a brand new product. We were one of the first to market in the States. We were importing them from China, and we knew we needed money to scale. So we didn't want to have a massive opportunity cost like we just had on the hoverboards. So in this scenario, we brought on equity partners, unfortunately gave them 51% of the company. They brought some relationships. They brought some funding that we used to buy more inventory, to get a nice big warehouse where we could do the shipping and distribution. And we thought that was going to be a winning ticket for us. Unfortunately for us, we brought on partners that didn't fulfill all the promises that they said they were going to do, all these different events they were going to get us into, all these different relationships, these licensing deals, etc. So ultimately, we had to buy the business partners out of the company, which costed us tens of thousands of dollars and a lot of time and money and headache to get them out. So I did see how getting access to money from someone else was valuable. That helped us scale, get us into more events and sell more products. I learned about getting in business with the wrong people and the damage that can be done by that. So that was a very important lesson there. The third business, I learned about the third way to fund a business before I get to the fourth, which is the best way to fund a business from my experience. So the third way, in this business, it was a travel company. My brother and I organized Cabo spring break trips for university students. And again, I knew we needed money to scale. So in this scenario, we brought on a loan. The loan had a 10 or 12% interest rate. And ultimately, we got access to money. We were paying interest on this loan. And that helped us buy hotel inventory at the nice hotel we were sending people to on the trips in Cabo, at the Mi Cabo luxury resort, fantastic place. But that buying the hotel inventory in bulk allowed us to get a better deal on the inventory and undercut our competitors, and that allowed us to take market share from our competitors. The main competitor specifically, we took a lot of market share from on the West Coast, which they were trying to compete with us on. Ultimately, a couple months later, they reached out to us in talks to acquire our travel business. And then we closed the deal. We sold the travel company to them, and then that was a massive success. So what I learned from that opportunity, in that opportunity, we brought on a business loan, we were paying interest, it helped us scale much faster, and ultimately led to something great like a business acquisition. But at the end of the day, we paid interest. And anytime you're paying interest, it makes it that much more difficult to actually turn a profit, to actually succeed, because you have another cost on your profit and loss statement. When I was getting into my next business, which was e-commerce drop shipping, again, I knew I needed money to scale. At around this time, I started to learn about a relatively newer business credit product. Okay, this is business credit cards that have 0% interest for the first 9 to 18 months. And I was able to do this with inside information from relationship managers at the banks who are connected with the underwriters. I learned that you can get higher limits on business credit cards. The credit cards don't report to your personal credit profile. So what that means is you can max the business credit cards out and it doesn't negatively affect your personal credit score, so you can get more and more funding. And then I also learned you can get approved for these massive limits, 50K limits, 75K limits over 8 different cards, 50K, 50K, 75, 20, 20K, rack up $200,000 to $300,000 at 0% for that 9 to 18 month period. You can get approved for those amounts without showing any tax returns, without showing any proof of income, without giving up any collateral, because they borrow the likeness of your personal credit report. So what I realized through this inside information was if you can optimize your personal credit report in a way that's attractive to these underwriters and build strategic bank relationships with the right banks that have the best 0% cards and understand how to apply for these cards, when to apply, what information to include on the application, in what cadence to apply in, how to apply like over the phone through a relationship manager, do an in-branch application. So I learned about all these different ways. Just over 12 months, I was able to get approved for $500,000 of business credit, and I was able to use that money and start several different Ecom dropshipping stores. One specifically did well over $1 million in revenue. I had another one that was doing 50 to 80,000 a month in revenue. And I had several of these stores, which was incredible. And so the huge aha moment for me was I found a way. I found a new credit product that basically most of the world didn't know about. And I will say, as Americans or access to the US banking system, this is a credit product only for us. The whole world does not have this credit product, 0% interest business credit cards. It's only Americans or people who have access to the American banking system. When I learned about this credit product, I realized that almost no other Americans knew about it, specifically how to get very high limits and how to really maximize efforts on getting these great approvals. So I was able to get approved for this funding, grow several Ecom dropshipping stores, and I was able to do it without self-funding the businesses, without bringing on equity partners and giving away control, and without paying interest. And I was able to make so much money on the Ecom stores, I was able to pay off the balances on the cards before I owed any interest. So that completely blew my mind. And then from there, I realized there's so many other people that don't know how to do this. And I felt like I absolutely cracked the code, which I did. So that's when I put together a coaching program called Credit Stacking in 2020. Since then, I've taught well over 3,000 students in the coaching program, and I have a done-for-you service where I help entrepreneurs get access to this type of funding as well through a done-for-you approach. And we've helped several hundreds of people there, and it's been great. And I think when you use a tool like this in business, it can very effectively bring your business to the next level. Of course, anytime you're bringing on debt in a business or in your personal life, it carries some risk, right? Because there might be interest, you might default if you can't pay it back, then you get a collection, etc. However, if you use the credit as a strategic tool and use it wisely, it can be a tool that can catapult your business to the next level. For a lot of people, if you had access to $50,000 or $100,000 more dollars that you can borrow for free, use it in your business, it can help you make more money. And what I've learned in business from several businesses over the last 10 years is when I had access to more money, I could move quicker, I can scale faster, and the chance of me succeeding in business And from what I've seen for the thousands of students that I've coached is when you have access to more money, your chance of succeeding in the business increases. So if you're an entrepreneur and you've been in business, maybe your first business, maybe your 10th business, if you have done any type of different funding options, I'd love to hear about those in the comments. Or even if you haven't leveraged your business at all using debt, I'd also love to hear that in the comments as well. And if you are either an aspiring entrepreneur or you are already in business looking to put some gasoline on the fire and you want to learn how to credit stack effectively from the best program in the game, I want to invite you to our program, Credit Stacking. For only a small monthly subscription, you can learn all of these strategies to help get you access to $50,000 to $300,000 of 0% interest funding to bring your business to the next level. Now more than ever, I think it's so crucial to achieve financial independence, to bring your business to the next level, to buy land, buy property, build a dream house, make sure your family is set up financially for the rest of your life, to have that peace of mind. And I think the easiest way to do that is through entrepreneurship. It's through scaling your business. And then once you have some profit, you can put that profit into Bitcoin, into real estate, etc. But if you want to learn how to get access to this type of funding, click the link right down below or go to creditstacking.com. We'd love to help you get to the next level. I'll see you in the next video.